We're reading from Srimad Bhagawatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, verses 28 to 33. We'll finish the chapter today. Text 28. Kadambakanja kapishangavasasa. Oh, I forgot to say word by word. Okay. Kadamba, Kinjaka, Pishanga, Vasasa, Kadambakanja kapishanga vasasa, Salampitam, Mekalaya, Nitambe, Salampitam, Mekalaya, Nitambe, Harena, Charanta, Tanena, Vatsa, Harena, Charanta, Tanena, Vatsa, Shivatsa, Vaksha, Stala, Valapena, Shivatsa, Vaksha, Stala, Valapena, Karambakinja, Kapishanga Vasasa, Swalampitambe, Kalayanitambe, Harena Chananta, Tanena Vatsa, Shivatsa, Vaksha, Stala, Valapena, Karambakinja, Kapishanga Vasasa, Salampitambe, Kalayanitambe, Arena Chananta, Tanena Vatsa, Shivatsa, Vaksha, Stala, Valapena, Chant.
Kadambakanja kapishanga vasasa, Swalampitambe, Kalayanitambe, Harena Chanta, Tanena Vatsa, Shivatsa, Vaksha, Stala, Valapena,
Kadamba Kinjalka. Saffron dust of the Kadamba flower. Ishanga. Dress of the color. Vasasa. By clothing. Stu Alankritam. Well decorated. Mekalaya. By the belt. Titambe. On the waist. Harena. By the garment. Cha. Also. Ananta. Highly. Tanena. Valuable. Vatsa. My dear Vidura. Shivatsa. Of the transcendental marking. Vakshasala. On the chest. Valavena. Very pleasing. Translation. Oh, my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the Kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with a shivatsa marking and a necklace of unlimited value. Repeat. Oh, my dear Vidura. The Lord's waist is covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the Kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with the shivatsa marking and a necklace of unlimited value. Text 29. Paradkakira Ramani Paveka Payasta Dordanda Sahasashakam Aryaktulam Bhuvanam Kripendram Ahintapogar Adivitavaksham. Translation. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body is decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was a self-situated tree, Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body is also covered by the hoods of Ananta. Report. The word of Yaktamulam is significant here. Generally, no one can see the roots of a tree, but as far as the Lord is concerned, he is the root of himself, because there is no other separate cause of his standing but he himself. In the Vedas it is said, the Lord is Swa Shaya Shaya. He is his own support, and there is no other support for him. Therefore, Avyakta means Supreme Lord himself and no one else. Text 30. Chara Charauka Bhagavam Mahitram Ahindabandham Salidapabhurham Kirittasar Shahyan Shingam Avir Bhavakaushtaparatnagarpam. Translation. Like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode for all moving and non-moving living entities. He is a friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with thousands of golden helmeted hoods of Ananta Naga. And as a mountain sometimes filled with jewels, so also his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain sometimes submerged in ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in the water of devastation. Text 31. Nivitam amnaya madhupratashya sakirtimaya vanamalaya harim Suryan divayvak nyakavam mavi parikamatra panikartarasanam. Translation. Lord Brahma, thus looking upon the Lord in the shape of a mountain, concluded that he was Hari, personality of Godhead. He saw the garland of flowers on his chest, glorified him with Vedic wisdom and sweet songs, and looked very beautiful. He was protected by the Sudarshan wheel for fighting, and even the sun, moon, air, fire, etc. could not have access to him. Text 32. Tahyevatanapi sarasarojam atmanam ampa shasanam viyatsha dadasha deva jagata pitata nata param loka visaradishti. When Lord Brahma, maker of universal destination, saw the Lord, he simultaneously glanced over creation. Lord Brahma saw the lake and Lord Vishnu's navel, and the lotus flower, as well as the devastating water, the dry air, and the sky, all became visible to him. Text 33. Sakarma bijam rajasa parakta rajaha shishiksan iyat epatishtva austak sakar vimukastam ityam avyaktavartman yavi veshitatma. Lord Brahma, thus being surcharged with the mode of passion, became inclined to create, and after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by personality of Godhead, he began to offer his respectful prayers on the path of the creative mentality. Magam karati vakshanam pangam nam penetim yakipam hambande shivam dinatarinam om agyanat mirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurinitam yana tasmai shikuravi namaha. So I'm going to do a combination of Maharaja's class about details of the form of the Lord, especially concentrating on his lotus feet and his smiling face. And I'm also going to do a little bit of Kusha's class, like going back to the beginning of creation, this chapter, going back through a few verses, not the whole thing like she did, a few verses, and talking about them. Also important verses that struck me as being interesting or relevant. So first of all,
there's a little purport with this last one.
I didn't read it? Oh, sorry about that. Okay, let's hear the purport of this last verse. Purport. Yes. Even if one is in the material mode of passion, to create something in the world, he has to take shelter of the Supreme for the necessary energy. That is the path of successful termination of any attempt. Very important purport. What would we know if we didn't read that purport? And I'm going to talk about that too, how we are dependent on the Lord for success. So, okay, we're going to go back. I don't exactly know which verse this is, but it's talking about how the sum total of the karma of the living entities burst through the abdomen of Lord Vishnu in the form of a lotus flower. And then Lord Vishnu entered the lotus as super soul and Brahma was born. So now I'm going to go to verse 17, purport, where Prabhupada says, Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, lotus, and the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium. So no human being, the human being is so limited in his capacity without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. So, yeah, that verse struck me because how he was perplexed, and then, but the conclusion is you need help from the Lord to do anything, actually. So then I'm going ahead to another verse 17, and in this canto, chapter 13, he got perplexed again because the earth, the whole blue mandala, fell into the ocean. So he got perplexed again. It's not a smooth creation at all. Not very smooth. There was demons, there was demigods, and he had a near-death experience when he created demons and they tried to eat him. Yeah, so in this verse he was perplexed. He said, you know, while I've been engaged in creation, the earth has gone down to the bottom of the ocean. What can we do? And then he concluded, it's best to let the Almighty Lord direct us. So he came to that same conclusion at the end of this purport. The Lord can help us. So very interesting. I'm going to read a little bit of that purport where Prabhupada says, the devotees of the Lord are sometimes perplexed in discharge of their respective duties, but they are never discouraged. So have you ever been perplexed in your duties? Devotional service? Yes. They have full faith in the Lord, and he paves the way for the smooth progress of devotees' duties. So sometimes, you know, things don't work out. Sometimes they just don't work out. And you know, I'm doing my service, but how come? not working out. What's going on here? And so Prabhupada explains, when we have impediments, we can change them into favorable circumstances. How to do that? That's in 6th canto, 4th chapter, 27-28 purport. Prabhupada says the process of hearing and chanting enters the core of the heart, and by continuing this process, you come to love Krishna and appreciate his name, his form, qualities, and pastimes. So pure devotee, by devotional service, can see the Lord despite many material impediments. So these impediments, Prabhupada says, they're just energies of Krishna. So we have to see them in relation to Krishna when the impediments come. So Kunti also saw, this is good. I like the impediments. Now we're okay, you're leaving. And when we had problems, you were with us. And so, yes, we have to see the impediments as the mercy of Krishna. Yeah. That happened to me a few days ago. My ticket to India was canceled, and it took me 6 hours to get somebody on the phone. I would get somebody, and then they would say, okay, I'm transferring you. Another 45 minutes wait. Another 40, it kept happening. 45 minutes, 45, it took me 6 hours to get somebody on the phone. Calling 2 airlines and the agency. But then after it all got over with, it came out better. Because my ticket was earlier, I could get my PCR test in time. And I thought, oh my God, it was a difficult day. If we want to see Krishna, Prabhupada says we have to pray, Ayi nanda sanurja pinkaram patinamam vishame bhavamudao. Oh, Krishna, I'm your eternal servant, but I fall into this ocean, birth and death. There was one time my son put a picture on Facebook of himself in the ocean, and he had his hand up with this symbol. I don't know what it means, but maybe the youth know. So I mean,
love.
What means love? Okay, the only thing coming out of the ocean was his hand like this. And so I quoted this verse, oh, son of Maharaj Nanda, I'm your servant, but some might fall into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up. He liked that comment. Because it's what's happening in this material world. We're in the ocean, and we think everything's, it's all right, no problem. I can swim. Anyway, so this is the mood. Please, Krishna, pick me up. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to verse 26, where the Lord shows his lotus feet. And Kunti, in her prayers, verse 39 of her prayers, is telling Krishna, our kingdom is marked by the impressions of your feet. And so it's beautiful, but when you leave, it will no longer be so. And so, what does it mean to remember Krishna's lotus feet? We have to always keep Krishna in the center, and Kunti did that, so she remembered Krishna. And Prabhupada said, yeah, we can have Krishna anytime we want. And how do we do that? By chanting. By chanting Hare Krishna, we can bring Krishna to us. And so Kunti was very anxious that Krishna was leaving them, but Prabhupada said no, Krishna was not leaving, just as he never left Vrindavan. Because what happens when Krishna goes away is he becomes more intensely present in the mind of the devotee. So, yeah, and this is the teaching of Lord Chaitanya. Every day we say, Shindayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahaname, that this universe looks vacant without Krishna. So, Prabhupada talks about living in Vrindavan, that there are still many devotees in Vrindavan looking for Krishna and his associates. You don't meet Krishna face to face. I mean, I haven't yet, although I've lived in Vrindavan 27 years. But Prabhupada says the devotees eagerly searching after Krishna is as good as seeing him personally. How this is so cannot be explained, but it's realized by those who are pure devotees. And so Prabhupada says the very idea of searching for him in Vrindavan gives more pleasure to the devotee than seeing him face to face. And such devotees see him face to face. So now let's go to the lotus feet. Govinda Lilamrita says, if you just mention Krishna's lotus feet, it removes your thirst for everything else. They destroy calamities. If you think of Krishna's lotus feet, your calamities are destroyed. And you will get all material and spiritual fortune, beauty, good qualities, and wealth. So we're going to meditate a little bit on his lotus feet. If you look on the soles of his lotus feet, you will see some marks. I'm going to talk about a few of those marks. There's one, a barley seed. It's just like looks like this. Like an eye, actually, but really, really small. If you meditate on that barley seed, you get all opulence. And your journey through many births and deaths becomes that small, like a barley seed. Now there's a line coming up his foot also, and that means you'll be transported to the spiritual world, and the path is very straight. You can't be captive in this universe. And also, Krishna, his lotus feet, reach down to the lowest of fallen souls and deliver them to the highest place. Now there's an octagon. In case you're interested in mystic powers, you can meditate on that sign on Krishna's lotus feet. And you're also protected in 8 directions. There's 8, it's an octagon, 8 sides. And yeah, and nothing is unattainable for you if you do this meditation. Triangle, many, many meanings. I'll just tell a few. You're protected from the 3 modes of nature and the threefold miseries. And you should concentrate on his lotus feet with body, mind, and words. Umbrella protects you from the rain of material miseries. The chakra, the wheel, protects you from your enemies. And who are your enemies? Lust, anger, greed, delusion, envy, and bewilderment. That's our enemies. And unfortunately, they're inside. So we need to meditate on that chakra, on that disc. Flag. The flag is victory. And freedom from fear. Thunderbolt and half moon, they kind of go together because there's a verse in Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 28th chapter, meditation of the yogis. Lord Shiva becomes all the more blessed by bearing on his head the holy waters of Ganga, which has its source in the water that washed the Lord's lotus feet. And the symbol, how Lord Shiva puts that, is he has the half moon on his head. So that's the meaning of the half moon will purify you. And the Lord's feet are like thunderbolts. They shatter the mountain of sin in your heart. But you have to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for a long time to get that. But I'm not sure if you want the thunderbolt. Might be a bit heavy to get all your sins out at once. No, it will take time. We can do it gradually also. Now the bow, there's a bow. And if you take shelter of his lotus feet, you'll be free from all worries and difficulties. And if you come to his lotus feet, you'll stay there and won't come back to this world. And when the mind of the devotee meets the target of his feet, prema overflows. So, how can we, how are his lotus feet a target? Well, there's a verse in Bhagavatam which explains how his lotus feet are a target for us. That the body is a chariot, the senses are horses, the mind is the reins, the objects of the horses are the destinations, intelligence is the driver, and consciousness is the cause of bondage. And also, we are the owner of the chariot. And the bow is the Vedic mantra. And Prabhupada says the bow is Hare Krishna mantra. And we are the arrow. And the target is Krishna, or Krishna's lotus feet. So, Srila Prabhupada says we have to take the arrow of our purified life and put it to the bow of the Hare Krishna mantra and throw ourselves towards Krishna. Very beautiful. That's a purport. That's in the Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 15th chapter, 41-42. Explanation of how, when we chant Hare Krishna, we're throwing ourselves for the lotus feet of Krishna. So now we're going to move up from his lotus feet to his navel. Kunti, as Adi quoted, describes Nama Pankachanabhaya, Nama Pankachamalini, Nama Pankachanetraya, Namaste Pankachanraya. My respectful obeisances to you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who always decorate with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and feet are engraved with lotuses. So, the first thing she says is Nama Pankachanabhaya, the navel. Prabhupada explains in his lecture that why is it lotus navel? Because the lotus came out of his navel. And we heard, as we heard in this chapter, from his navel comes a lotus. Namapaka Chamalini, a garland of lotus flowers. And Prabhupada said, he's not the source of only one lotus, but many, many lotuses. So the garland of lotus flowers is each universe is a lotus. And Krishna's wearing them. That's the garland of lotuses, each universe. Nechaya, his eyes. Again, the meditation of the yogis. Yogis should contemplate with full devotion compassionate glances frequently cast by the Lord's eyes, for they soothe the most fearful threefold agonies of his devotee. So, yeah, we're going to talk a lot about his glance and his smile. And again, she finishes with his lotus feet. So now let's go to verse 27. It talks about the smile, how the Lord becomes a debtor. That was yesterday's verse. And he can only try to repay the devotee's service with his smile. So, we experienced that when Prabhupada was here. We would try to please Prabhupada, and our payment was his smile. So I have a little story here about one of my god sisters, Nandamajari, that she was playing Devaki in Bombay in a drama the day before, and Prabhupada was leaving Bombay, and he came, he heard they were practicing, he came and he watched the practice. And at the end, we were chanting Hare Krishna, and she saw, oh, Prabhupada's not there, he must have gone, I have to go to the airport. She jumped off the stage and ran outside looking for the car, and the car had already left. There was another car there for sannyasis. And she grabbed her friend, Aditya, who's very sober and very, opposite of her, and ran in the car and put her in there with her. And the sannyasis came to the car, and she was just going, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. And they said, okay, you can have the car. So she got to the airport, and they pulled right up, and Prabhupada pulled right up after her. And Prabhupada was smiling at her, and she was saying, Prabhupada, thank you, thank you, thank you. And he had just had this huge smile. And she started jumping up and down, chanting, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. And he said, did you see how he was smiling at you? He was laughing at you. And so that, and several months before, she remembered she was in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada came to watch the drama. And he was sitting on his rocking chair under the desire tree, and she was watching Prabhupada the whole time. And he was smiling again, smiling. She said, oh, they're making him smile. They're entertaining him. I wish I could do that too. I wish I could make him smile. She looked up and she said, oh, I'm under the desire tree. Maybe it'll come true. And then it happened. She made him smile again. And so, yeah, the Lord's glance. Again, Kunti says, all these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and greens are abundance. Trees are full of fruits, rivers are flowing, hills are full of minerals, oceans are full of wealth. This is due to your glancing. So, what is in Krishna's glance? In his glance, he creates. He glances at Maya, and everything's sent there. And the three things I told in one of my first lectures, he sends karma, he sends us, the jiva, and he sends kala, time. And for maintenance, there's a verse in the 11th canto. As long as he glances on this material world, it continues to exist. If he were to stop glancing, this world would be finished. So he's still glancing, and that maintains the world. And yeah, we'll hear about destruction. There you go. Okay, destruction. That is also, we find in 1st canto, 9th chapter, Bhishma Dev is saying, when Arjuna and Krishna went to speak Bhagavad Gita, they were between the two armies. Krishna looked at the opposite party and shortened their lifespans by his glance. All their lives got shortened, and Krishna glanced at them. So watch out for Krishna's glance. But actually, his glance is very special. In 10th canto, 13th chapter, when Brahma stole the cats and cowherd boys, he saw all of them transform into Vishnu. And Vishnu was glancing, and Vishnu was smiling. So what was in the glance of Vishnu, that by his glance, it was like the motive passion. He was creating, by the motive passion, spiritual desires. And that's what Prabhupada said, if you get the glance of the Lord in the temple, your spiritual desires will increase. Now, he was also smiling. Now, what's in the smile is more like the motive goodness. So the motive, he was smiling, and that protects your desires. You won't lose your spiritual desires. Spiritual desires are everything, and that will take us back to home, back to God. We need to desire spiritually to go back to home, back to Godhead. And so, yes, and so the glance also gives prosperity. Kunti Devi says, prosperity is due to your glance. And so Prabhupada made a comment on that. When we sit in the temple and Krishna glances over us, so the deities are glancing. We're with the deities. They are glancing. Prabhupada is glancing. It's not finished. They're still glancing. You can get it even now. So when he said, Prabhupada said, when we sit in the temple of Krishna, Krishna glances over us and everything is nice. When sincere souls try to become Krishna's devotees, Krishna very kindly comes before them in his full opulence and glances on them, and they become happy and beautiful. And so you become happy. The deities are there. One time, one person, a visitor, asked Jananivas in Mayapur, what are the deities made of? And Jananivas' answer was, what is your heart made of? That's what the deities are made of. Means, if you see stone, your heart is stone. If you see metal, your heart is metal. If you see whatever, I don't know what these ones are made of, then that's what your heart's made of. So, the deities are there, and they can reciprocate with us with their glance and with their smile. And it happens. It does happen. So, we should look for Krishna's glance, everything will be all right. When Prabhupada was here, we used to have problems. When Prabhupada was away, and we were ready, okay, we're going to tell Prabhupada about this problem now. And so Prabhupada would look at us, and he would say, is everything all right? And we couldn't remember what the problems were. It's like the glance. So I'm going to talk about now the glance of Srila Prabhupada from devotees who got the glance. Of course, you can still get it. He's here. But this is their experience from Prabhupada. The first one was Radhanath Swami in Vrindavan before he became a devotee. He was visiting, he was attending. And so one day he said, as Prabhupada was walking to his car after giving a lecture, I, along with crowds of people, bowed down to him. When I got up, Prabhupada was in front of me. I was on my knees looking up at Prabhupada, who had a serious, concerned expression and was looking right at me. I felt he was looking into my soul. And it was touched by Prabhupada's glance. Never before in my life had a sensation like that. So Prabhupada asked, how long have you been living in Vrindavan? I said, oh no. All the devotees have been chastising me for living in Vrindavan. Now Prabhupada is going to chastise me. Shyly, I said, Srila Prabhupada, I've been here about 6 months. Prabhupada stood silently, looking at me, penetrating me with his glance. It seemed like hours. Perhaps it was about 30 seconds. Then his face blossomed into a beautiful, ecstatic smile. He said, very nice. Vrindavan is the most wonderful place. He rubbed me on the head and walked on. I thought, everyone's chastising me for being in Vrindavan. Prabhupada knows what I need to hear to become attached to him. After that, I was ready to go anywhere and do anything for him because I felt he understood and loved me. His encouragement made me attached to him and to devotion was there. So he did leave Vrindavan and he went to New Vrindavan. And then he helped one of the pioneers in New Vrindavan to start New Vrindavan. He left Vrindavan for New Vrindavan. So another remembrance is from Radharani, who was one of the original artists of our books. She talks about Prabhupada's glance. If Prabhupada just casually or quickly looked at us, it had tremendous significance. Like many devotees, I felt he wasn't just seeing me. It was almost embarrassing, but at the same time, it was not embarrassing because You knew not only was he seeing beyond the body, but he was seeing beyond the faults and beyond the interactions of the modes of nature. He was seeing the soul, which is so full of wonderful qualities. It was embarrassing, and then it went beyond embarrassing. It was blissful when he would glance at you. We hear that when Krishna took lunch with his coward boyfriends, everyone would think, he's just looking at me, it's just me and him. That's how it was with many of us and Prabhupada. If 10 people were in the room with him, each had a personal story of the same moments. And so was Prabhupada. In Australia, Bhakta Arthur was a boxer for the South Sydney Leagues Club, and he was a tough guy. He had a carpet laying business. Prabhupada's eyes stopped at Arthur. Arthur was looking Prabhupada in the eye, and Prabhupada was looking at Bhakta Arthur. Bhakta Arthur recalls he was looking, and Prabhupada's gaze was so intense, eventually he had to look away. Prabhupada's gaze was affectionate but grave. And so then later he became a Jamuna, this devotee, our godbrother. And he said that glance brought him closer to Krishna consciousness. Along with that glance came all the blessings of Prabhupada in the cyclic succession. And he felt impregnated with something spiritual at that time. And now I have from Sachinanda Swami, one incident showed me how a pure devotee can infuse a receptive soul with conviction and spiritual strength. Devotees were going to Oxford Street to chant and distribute magazines. I was standing outside wondering whether I should go with the Sankirtan party or stay back and study Prabhupada's books. I looked up to Prabhupada's room, and suddenly Prabhupada appeared at the window and looked down at the Harinam party. Pleased at the sight, he smiled broadly. Immediately it was clear what I should do. I remember that day well. Prabhupada's glance and smile had made me so enthusiastic. Even after the party returned, I went back out with Vasudev. We just continued to chant and dance through the streets of London and distribute back to Godhead magazines. We felt so inspired by Prabhupada's personal presence and spiritual potency, we didn't care for anything else in the world. Just as Lord Chaitanya would give people spiritual energy by looking at them and embracing them, Prabhupada would empower his followers in similar ways. So another experience, Sachinanda Swami at the Heathrow Airport. He was just a new devotee. So he bowed down and he said, after I thought Prabhupada had already passed, I lifted my head. To my surprise, I saw before me a pair of slippers. I looked up and looked right into Prabhupada's eyes. He seemed to welcome me into his family. I was overwhelmed. At the very moment, something transpired between Krishna's pure devotee and this fallen soul. I could feel his immense potency in attracting souls to Krishna. When I saw Srila Prabhupada standing before me, aglow with spiritual mercy, I felt much attraction to his lotus feet. It became clear to me I should surrender to him, and I knew he recognized me and would accept me. So know some ladies, a couple of ladies. This is Sarvamangala. When Prabhupada glanced at us, we felt he knew us, our spiritual identity, who we actually were. His glance held more than compassion. He saw us as spiritual personalities, and from his glance we had more of an understanding of our spiritual identity. Prabhupada's association, we got knowledge of ourselves. His glance informed us we weren't this body, and it brought us into the spiritual world. Because Prabhupada brings the spiritual world with him since he's with Krishna. This feeling wasn't just sentimental. Prabhupada knew we're not this body, we're in the spiritual world, and every time we saw him, to some extent, we experienced these transcendental truths. So last one, I don't have a name. Last time I saw Prabhupada was in 1977, February, in Mayapur. In class, Prabhupada was looking at all the devotees individually. When he looked at me in his glance, he gave me love and affection and communicated, I'm yours, you're mine, and I'm bringing you to Krishna. I could see he had been there for me for many lifetimes, and he was saying, please, come back to Krishna. It was like a glimpse of the spiritual world. Well, that was Prabhupada. And so we can meditate on the lotus feet of Krishna, we can get the glance, and try to get his glance, and offer prayers to Krishna for help. So I'll just end with the last purport. Even if I forgot it, I would have said it again. So here it is. Even if one is in the material mode of passion to create something in the world, he has to take shelter of the Supreme for the necessary energy. In That is the path of the successful termination of any attempt. So we need to take shelter. We've got the most merciful forms, and very interesting, because Lord Chaitanya is Radha and Krishna combined. So if you look at his lotus feet, you will find the marks of Krishna and the marks of Radharani on his lotus feet, and even more. He's got his own too, own marks. So yes, it's a good meditation. You can look it up on Google. They probably have the feet there somewhere, and you can find out what they look like. So many marks, so many. Lord Chaitanya has, I think Radha has 19, Krishna has 19, and so then that means Lord Chaitanya has 38 plus more, over 40 marks on his lotus feet, special marks. Okay, I'll stop here. Any questions, comments on that? Yes?
Isn't there a footprint of Lord Krishna somewhere in India? They have it's like a rock or whatnot.
Oh yeah, in Vrindavan, they have a few where he stepped and the rocks melted.
Wow.
They do have footprints, and in Gaya, where they do Shad ceremony for the forefathers, then they have Vishnu's footprint there. Mm-hmm.
My Hawaii friend told me that, Kamapua Avaraha, his footprint is Ka'au crater, and this is his island. So,
Oh, Varaha, this one. Could very well be. Hawaii is the footprint, the whole of Hawaii is the footprint of Varaha. Okay, could be, who knows?
That one out together. Hawaii,
We don't know where he walked. Yes?
Unless you described if we meditate on the different symbols of the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like Krishna, it will be how this or that. And then if we meditate on his lotus feet, it's all combined.
Well, yeah, I never thought of that. And so, if we just meditate on his lotus feet, it includes all the marks? I would say so, yes.
Right, because that's kind of our main goal.
I mean, it's his feet. It's, it's there. It's part of it. There's a lot of, if you meditate on his lotus feet, there's a lot of things besides, his feet. There's tulsi, there's ankle bells, there's a smell. And yeah, in a future verse next week, in the beginning, it talks about the lotus feet, how you can smell them, I think. Anyway, there is a fragrance of his lotus feet.
And then, is it not just a figure of speech of meditating on his lotus feet?
Yeah, it's not just a figure of
So
speech.
just literally meditate on his
Yes, it means also do devotional service.
Right.
Yeah, do means to be active,
Yeah.
not just sit and meditate, but actively serve the lotus feet. And that's also there. We have to do that too. Not okay. I'm just going to sit and watch. That's Shantaras, where you just sit and meditate and do nothing. But we want to at least be on dasya, servitude. So then we serve the lotus feet, and not just meditate on them. But while we serve, we can meditate.
So like taking shelter.
Yeah, taking shelter. Yeah, we just take shelter. The demigods meditate on his lotus feet so they can get their powers of running the universe. They do meditate.
So is it recommended for us to do so?
No, you don't have to, but you can do it. It's not like there's nothing saying you can't do it. And it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. I do it sometimes. When I chant japa, I'll just chant and look at the different mark of the lotus feet. And sometimes I do that. Before I came here, if I'm not in front of any deities, then I do that. But here I chant in front of Prabhupada, so then I don't do something else because I'm with Prabhupada. So yeah, but I do that when I travel a lot and I can't have darshan when I travel. And so I do that, yeah. It's very, it kind of keeps you. It keeps you in one place. Yeah, you can try it sometimes. Yeah. Okay? Yes?
So, Srimati Radharani's lotus feet has so many
marks. Yeah.
So it was good to meditate on that too.
Yeah, why not? But Lord Chaitanya, it would be better Lord Chaitanya because
It's combination.
he's more merciful than both of them.
It's also a combination of both.
It's a combination of both, so you'll get everything with Lord Chaitanya. You'll get all the marks of Lord Chaitanya. Yeah. You'll get everything. Yeah. And Nityananda has his own marks too. Some are the same and some are, he has a plow. He has 4 arrows. Very interesting marks he has on his feet. Nityananda, Balaram, Nityananda. So yeah, there's, and Advaita, Vishnu has not so many. Narayani has a lot. Narayani has quite a few. They're also different. All different marks. Not the same. Okay, any other questions? John, you have a question?
No, I just wanted to thank you for an amazing class. I really like all the details, all the feet. I would have probably not known that for a while. And it just shows how Krishna and Radha and Lord Chaitanya, they're so merciful that there's just so many ways that we could just serve them with devotion. Just
Right,
so many.
right.
So, really thank you for that.
Yeah.
Could we have some lotus feet classes?
Feet classes.
Instead.
You just had one.
Maybe.
Well, there was more.
Yeah.
There's so much more.
Yeah, we could. Or maybe only one day because I'm leaving on Thursday.
Oh. Well, you'll be back.
I doubt it because I don't have the opulence.
Could we have one more lotus feet class? I'm not
Maybe.
running and
Yeah, not in Bhagavatam because
No.
it's not my day.
I'm not qualified.
Maybe a different, maybe in I don't know, in the evening or. But you have your classes in the evening. You have yours, so it wouldn't work in the evening. Yeah, and Saturday's Harinam and Sunday's feast, and that leaves Friday, Monday, Tuesday. Okay,
You can go to
maybe.
Google too, but it might be more blissful in the first one. You seem to have some stuff memorized.
Yeah, I used to meditate a lot of them. Okay, we could think about, yeah, maybe make a time on Monday, maybe after breakfast on Monday.
That sounds good.
Is that okay? And we can do Radha and Krishna. All right, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.